So now that I've got a 3D printer that can print in full color, I guess it's time that we start to talk about how we put color into our 3D models. So putting color into 3D models is actually a problem that's been around almost as long as making 3D models existed. The first model format, STL, that we're still using today, it has no color data into it. So the first thought on how to put color data was, of course, just to follow that idea and just color the polygons, the individual shapes that make up the 3D shape. Now, I could deep dive into this. I mean, I've got a whole book about how to do ray tracing by hand. In fact, I've written a ray tracer in C++ that was interesting. But we don't need to go into that right now. All we need to go into is how to put color data into your 3D models in Tinkercad. Now, let me show you this first. This is a fully colored model in Tinkercad, and it's this 3D model that I printed. It's designed to be printed on its head so that the overhangs and everything work, but nevertheless, there we go, full color, and the color is here in Tinkercad. Now, it should be mentioned that this is a grouped object. It's not separate objects overlapping. I could really easily, just grab a cube here and put it on my scene and make that one white. Put a heart shape on the top of it right here. Shrink it down so it's the right size, and go, look at that. I made a companion cube, right? And but that's not properly manifold, and you're going to run into problems with this shape if you try to print it because it's just overlapping shapes that are on top of each other. If you don't understand what I mean by manifold, I got a really old video where I teach you about that. Bam, card right there that you can watch and learn about manifold. But this is bad, and you need to group it together. But when you group things in Tinkercad, it creates a Boolean operation, but it also wipes out the color. Now, I'm going to show you another example right here with this obviously pencil shape, right? This is a hexagonal prism that's yellow, followed by another hexagonal prism that's brown, followed by another hexagonal prism that's black with a gray cylinder. Let's just put that right back there, and a red cylinder with some bevel on it. And I've got my pencil sharpener right here, so we will just slide that over like that. And then we will grab them all and we will group them. And just like before, when we group them, boom, the color data disappeared, which is fine. On a normal FFF 3D printer, this is what you're going to get, a single color. Whatever color you load into the extruder is what you're going to get out. We can bring back that color data in Tinkercad. So up here, where you define if it's going to be a shape or a hole, we can open up the color and click multicolor. Let me show you what multicolor does. Multicolor just goes back to the layer before it and takes the color data from there. And if those objects were multicolor, it takes the color data from them as well. So, and you'll see even here where we did a Boolean operation and subtracted some of the shape there, it still keeps that whole shape. So that's super cool. And there we go, a fully colored pencil. I'm not quite sure it'll print as is. I'd have to maybe cut off the bottom to make it a little bit more printable, but the color data is there, and that's what we were demonstrating here. Let me show you another example. Now, take a look at this dice right here. This dice has a arrow on the one side right here. How did I get that arrow in the one side? Well, we're going to make some pips in the top. So I'm going to grab the work plane, put it on the top, grab some cylinders, and shrink them down. There we go. And then I'm going to put them in here, and I'll maybe make this the 2 side, And I'll just sink them down just 2 millimeters, 1, 2. And then we're going to duplicate that and move it over here. Is that properly positioned? Let's look at it from the top. Looks good to me. Okay, so we got our pips in there, but we need to make them into holes. And we'll make those into holes, and then we'll Boolean them together, group them, if you will, with the dice. And now we got holes in the top. And now I'm going to bring in a box, put it right here. I'm going to shrink it up just a little bit, so I'm going to bring it from below and shrink it up to be about 2-3 millimeters, so it bites into there. Make it smaller here. There we go. And I'm going to choose its color. I'm going to make these pips blue, and then group them all together. And the white of the block kind of takes over where the two polygons are overlapping. But where there was no polygon, where we had cut it out, it becomes that color. And we could do this. I could import a logo and put it on here. I could import a really cool shape and put it on there. But there we go. I used this technique when I made my Simon Pond. Here's a mini version of my Simon Pond. Sorry, he's so tiny. But and he's standing on his head over here because this is the way he prints. But I'll turn him right side up for you guys. On the back, he's got all these little fine details that are just flush with the shape, that if you printed this model on a normal FFF 3D printer, you wouldn't see any of this, nor would you see the coloring that was on the front, nor would you see the face, the screen. This is all just flat. And I used a similar technique to what I had done, what I just showed you for the dice over here, to get all of that detail in there. And of course, this took me a lot of effort to make that all work. So let's say that I get this dice complete. I'm good to go. Everything's the way that we want it. All we have to do now is export it, but just a selected shape. But do not export it as an STL. If you export it as an STL, all the color data will be lost. Instead, you have to export it as an OBJ in order to save that color data. Now, there are other formats that save color. 3MF is the new one, and I love it because OBJ puts the color data in separate files. So to keep track of one model with color, you really have to keep track of 3 or more files for all of the material data and textures and everything that define the color of that shape. But you know, that's what you got to do for OBJ right now. I wish that more slicers used 3MF. I wish that more 3D modeling programs exported in it. One day it will. One day everybody will catch up with it. But for now, a word of caution about using this technique for making 3D models. Each color that is assigned to the object is a separate material, and that material, while in Tinkercad only has flat color data in this modern day and age, it can have a lot of information, layered information, textures and procedural maps that can be mapped onto there. So if you are using an object that has a lot of different colors, each one of those materials gets an entry in the material table. Short version means the more colors you put into your object, the more complex the file format becomes, and it tends to cause errors when you bring it into other programs. If you have more than 16 colors in an object, it's usually recommended to stop right there and not put any more colors into it, or you're probably going to cause problems. And in fact, 8 is really where you should be for safe. Now, that's limiting. It's frustrating and limiting to say don't put as much color in there as you want. You have to limit the color, but limitations are what we work with. So just keep that limitation in mind so that things don't get thrown off and frustrated. And if you do that, you can make some really cool looking 3D models in Tinkercad without a whole lot of effort. If you would like to download the ponds that I'm making in color, they are available on the XYZ website and will be available on other sites in the future. There will be links in the description or wherever links are found, so go check them out. But as always, I want to thank you guys very much for watching. I want to remind you, safety first as you go out and make something, and I'll see you next time.
Do you want to know more about 3D printing but don't know where to start? Or did you buy a 3D printer, but you need some help getting it going? Don't panic. The Beginner's Guide to the 3D Printing Galaxy is here, now, for you. Buy it on Amazon.
Well, now that I've got a 3D printer that can produce full color 3D print. Oh my